Hello and welcome back to another episode of Only a Bag, an Italian travel podcast. I'm Nathaniel Mellor.
And I'm Darcy Melton.
Thank you all so much for joining us today. What are we talking about today?
Today we are talking about beaches and beach rules and beach culture.
Just in time. It is now, what are we in June, right?
Mm-hmm. Just barely in June. Well, not just barely. About a weekend as we record.
It is toasty.
It's getting toasty. Yeah.
So this is kind of the perfect timing.
Mm-hmm.
For anybody planning their trip at home, on the plane, on the taxi to the airport, who's like...
Maybe if you like daydreaming about beaches, but particularly about like beach rules, you're like, yeah, man, when I go to the beach, I really want to not have my umbrella in the wrong spot.
Sort of like
and not
Amy
litter.
Santiago from Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Exactly.
Who at the beach.
Yeah. I think that would be exactly how that character would plan her vacations.
This is it. This is the episode for her.
Yes.
Cool. Before we get started, I just wanted to mention very briefly that if anybody prefers listening on YouTube, we now actually have these live on YouTube. No, live? They're uploaded on YouTube. It's not live on YouTube. It does not include a video because our computers scream at us if we try to render a video over a minute and a half. I think last time we tried that, it was like we had ice packs, we had like a fan. I had the little like ornamental fans that I'm waving rapidly to cool the computer down. So they're not like, they don't love being used for video rendering. That will come later, hopefully later this year. But for now, if you prefer to listen on YouTube, if you have YouTube Music or something like that, where you're like, it's so much easier to listen there than it is to find it, on Apple and Spotify. You can absolutely check out all the episodes, and you'll continue to check out all the episodes if you'd like to on YouTube.
And people can kind of comment and... Can you follow on YouTube?
You can subscribe.
Subscribe, okay. I don't use YouTube that much.
I know, right? I don't think I have used YouTube for years, and I don't think I've subscribed to anybody. So I'm not a great example of YouTube culture. But I was also going to say, too, we also, like we've mentioned in the last episodes, we do have an Instagram. That's going to be mostly just sort of... part of it is reminders, I think, but also part of it is just we have all these videos we have just from kind of going around, especially rural Italy, some Florence, some Rome, Cinque Terre. You went to Pestrum the other day and took some beautiful videos. So if you're interested in what it looks like in some parts of Italy, especially rural Italy, you can follow us on only_a_bag on Instagram to find some fun rural Italy. I think I uploaded recently a video of some sheep and bees. Or a beehive, beehive, an apiary. What is that called? Bee box?
A bee box, an apiary. It's several bee boxes, so it's like a little bee community.
Bee boxes, beatboxing. And then last but not least, if you like the episode or the podcast, please follow us. It helps tremendously.
It really does.
And we do see that people are following us, by the way. And I just want to do like a huge shout out. Thank you to everybody who does follow us. We really genuinely appreciate it. And thank you to everybody actually who I didn't realize that Spotify, we publish this on Spotify, and they automatically attach a Q&A at the bottom of every episode. I think it's like, did you enjoy the episode or something? It's some sort of general vague question. And I've never figured out a way to turn it off. So I just sort of ignore that they're there and we never talk about it. But some people have answered that question and given very beautiful, lovely feedback. So thank you so much to those of you who have answered that question. Again, it's one of those things, it doesn't give us like a notification. We don't get like an email or like a little like chinky wink in the corner that says, hey, you've got mail. Please do not sue us, AOL. So that is all to say, thank you so much for those who have been giving feedback, who have been following, who've been rating us on Apple and on Spotify. It has been so incredibly helpful. We both really enjoy this, and we both really enjoy that people like this. So thank you.
It means a lot.
It does. And so without further ado,
let's talk about some beaches.
Absolutely.
Okay. So the first thing I want to say was something I found really interesting in my research that hadn't come up at all, like in living in Italy or going to beaches here. And it's that in Italy, you have a legal right to the sea.
Interesting.
I know. Isn't that cool? So you have to be able to get to the shore, no matter,
No private beaches, or is it like even if there's a private, you can still access the water?
You should be able to access the water.
Interesting.
Yes. So like here, we'll get into it a little bit later in the episode, but there are these lidos or lidi. It's like a little beach cafe, hut, restaurant, temporary structure. And also, and from that onto the beach will be like umbrellas and beach chairs and things that you can rent for the day that belong to that Lido, that business. But you, as just a regular person who doesn't pay, you have to legally be able to pass between the beach chairs and the shore, like where the waves are hitting the beach. You have to be able to walk by there. You have to be able to, you can take your dog through there. Some beaches you can't stay on the beach with your dog, like you can't just chill out, depending on the municipality, but your dog has to be able to walk with you along the shoreline.
So basically they can't have their chairs all the way to the water's edge.
Exactly. And if you're in the water, because there's, again, we'll talk about this in a second, there's something called the Spiaggia Libera, which is like the free and open beach that you don't have to pay for. It's just public. If you're in the water there and you start drifting towards the Lido, you don't have to swim back fervently to get to like the shore where the free beach is. You're legally allowed to be in that water.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Because I know that in some states in America, I think California, right? That's a big thing. Like in Malibu, I believe it is. It's like where there's a lot of people buy a house and it comes with a private beach. And there's always this fight over it's actually not a private beach. You can't build a fence. People can surf there. It's a beach. I think Mexico actually has that law, but it's not as, and that's what I'm curious about. It's like, I don't know if your research, you found how well regulated or how well protected that law is, or if it's more of like it's on the books, but it seems
pretty well protected. Like what I saw is that if the manager of a higher up of a business, of a Lido, tells you that you cannot be specifically in the water there without paying, you can call the police.
Wow.
Yeah. Again, I've never had to do that. You've never had to do that, so I don't know from experience, but that's what the research says.
And I'm curious too, because if anybody who's listening, most of you have seen at least one photo of a Lido from above. Like anytime I think there's a picture of an Italian beach, they always have like, it's all the umbrellas that match. It's all the beach chairs that match. It's like the Amalfi Coast, and it's all how it matches. And no, I mentioned that only because I think all the times that we've gone near them, nobody's really seemed to, I guess people aren't really that bothered. It's not like, I'm wondering like the Amalfi Coast might be a little more rigorous, like you can't be here for free, whereas like some other smaller town that has Lido are like, yeah, you guys, if you swim in front of our thing, it's fine. Just don't chill out on a chair without paying for it.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting. Okay.
And I wrote this down because I thought it was cool. According to Article 1, Paragraph 251 of Law Number 296/2006, access and transit to reach the shoreline, even in the presence of beach establishments, must be free and clear.
Interesting. So you can quote that. You can just have a little piece of paper and quote that to somebody. Excuse me. According to Law 262.
Yeah, you can find it in Italian, print it out, laminate it, bring it with you to the beach. People.
You have like that, what you're allergic to, and then like, scusa, non parlo italiano.
Yeah.
Just show them your 2 cards. I'm allergic to shellfish, and also I have a right to access the water.
Yeah, exactly.
Apologize, I'm going way off tangent. So that's really fascinating, though.
Yeah. So we've already talked about Lidos. Let's get into it a little bit more.
In the past episodes or this episode, you mean?
Just now, in this episode.
Just now, fantastic.
Yes.
Because we have, I think, we've broached the subject in past episodes as well.
We did, yeah. I think we probably explained it because we tend to explain it, mostly because I think you and I were so confused by what a Lido was and how it worked when we got here. We're not
from Italy, I guess, yeah.
And I feel like they're kind of self-explanatory. They're not, but other people might see one and know exactly what it is. Where you and I, because like we live near Tybee in the U.S., which is a little island off of the coast of Georgia, and the entire beach is public.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And there are lots of little shops and restaurants, but none of them are. I think one is kind of on the beach. But none of them are. So the point is that I was not used to places that have like a structure on actual sand at the beach, and so I didn't really know how it worked.
I think we're also used to like everybody brings their own chair, their own umbrella, their own everything. So the idea that like when you go to the beach and it's all there for you, it was a little bit different. I think which I don't know, it seems very Italian. Like it's very indicative, I think, of Italians as sort of. As Americans, I feel like we're used to like, if you're going to go do something, you have to go prepared.
Yeah.
And Italians are like, why would you go prepared? It's all, you don't need to prepare for anything. It's all there for you.
Preparing for an Italian is having a coffee
Yeah.
and maybe deciding what you're having for your next meal.
Yes, and oftentimes that doesn't include bringing food because you'll find food there.
Yeah, okay. So Lidos are really cool. They are basically brick and mortar businesses on the beach that pop up in the summer season.
Yeah.
And some of them are, well, I shouldn't say brick and mortar. They're wood. Yeah. So like some of them literally will just be there physically in the summer season. They are made so that they can be built and broken down at the beginning and end of the season. Some of them are, permanent cafe sort of things that are along the street.
I was going to mention too, only because we've talked, I think, the last episode, we're near the Cilento coast, which is a national park. And you can put up, it's a national park, but like, I think it's like, I don't know. There's national parks in the U.S. that have towns in them, right? Or no?
Yeah, at least along parts of them. I don't know
Right?
if inside parts of them. I don't know enough about national parks.
I know, me either.
the
Now that I'm
US.
thinking about it, because the Cilento, it's like a lot of some national parks in Italy have towns in the national park. It's just it's surrounded by forest, and you don't exclude the town. You're like, no, that's part of it. It becomes a cultural heritage thing. So here, there's a lot of beachfront that is federally protected. Like you can't build on it.
Yes.
So they do, as you mentioned, yeah. They because we've been there where it's like. Especially like the end of the season where it's like one or two are still there, like there might be a few extra dollars to be made, but no, they're all quite temporary. It's like all built on kind of scaffolding with like wooden planks, and they not bust in, I guess, but they have water tanks rather than having piped in water. Because I will say, or I guess you're going to get into it in a minute, like the function, I guess, of the Lido, what you do at a Lido. Okay.
I just wanted people to know what they look like.
Yes.
Because again, I didn't understand them.
Well, actually, if I may, sorry, and because the one other thought that popped in my head, unless you're going to cover it, in which case I will stop talking about it. We did this fun thing where I'm going to be surprised with a lot of this information, but I realize I might be jumping ahead on a lot of it. Do you talk about how people protect their Lidos in the winter?
No, you talk about that.
Well, I only thought that was interesting because we were in a small town in Calabria called Scalea.
Well, it's small normally. It's giant in the summertime.
Yes, it is. I think it's like when we were there, you can actually look online. I think something like 12,000 people are residents of Scalea, but it goes up to about 150,000 people in the summer. And that's, I mean, obviously that's huge. That's explosive growth. But in the winter, when we first got there, I think in like February, and all along the beach, in front of the lidi, plural for lido, were these giant mounds of sand, I guess,
like man-made dunes.
And we thought, like, I know that's a thing now, and maybe it's been a thing forever, but I mean, like, I know, like, sometimes there's the articles of, like, I think there's some article recently, so this town in Massachusetts spent this beachfront in Massachusetts spent like $150,000 to build these dunes in front of their house to protect it from a storm, and it was like 3 days later the dunes were gone. And again, it was, I don't know, it's one of those like Fire Island type of things. Like, why are you building there? You're building literally a piece of land that's going to be washed away in the next storm. But
we talked about this in the last episode, I think, with Romans building on sand.
Yes, exactly.
Same concept.
Same concept, still in style. But it was interesting because I think when we were in Scalea, we made friends with somebody who mentioned that theirs, basically, it was one of that didn't do a dune, or the dune got washed away because it was all the people living in our apartment building. Their Lido got like just destroyed by the storm, and they had to rebuild. So these are permanent, but in the sense of they're not brick, they're not stone, they're not like.
And some of them are used year round as a cafe.
Good point. Very good point.
Or even like partially used, but not all of them. A lot of them are like the instance with this friend. They had other businesses.
Yeah.
And other jobs, but then he owns and runs this Lido during the summer.
Yeah, exactly. And I just thought it was interesting the way that people they are. I don't know. I think it was the way it's preserved, and also the fact that these are just very temporary, very seasonal buildings.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really fascinating the way they exist. Okay, so it is a building. It is essentially, it's a cafe. So they have full coffee bar, usually like sandwiches. Some of them will be more like a restaurant combo with the cafe. Beer, obviously, you have to have beer at the.
Or you have to have a beer at the beach.
Yeah.
They're not crazy people.
And a lot of them will have like a little area where you can get out of the sun, little tables and things that's kind of attached to the restaurant. Some will have an outdoor shower type situation. Maybe not one where you can like fully shower, but just rinse the sand off and stuff.
Some of the nicer ones, I think, they do have not indoor, but private showers where you can like strip out of your bathing suit, shower, and then change and kind of feel better.
Some have changing rooms as well.
Some have changing rooms.
They vary, but then the thing that I think makes Alito is that it's on the beach, and it has umbrellas and beach chairs that you can rent for the day, or I think sometimes by the hour, by the half day. It kind of depends. Sometimes they'll have like a little, it's not a menu, but like a little options board in the front. Not necessarily with prices, but with like, here's what we offer.
I think that's the thing, just for what you mentioned, not necessarily with prices. What we did find, for whatever reason, is sometimes it was hard to know how much they cost before you went in. And I don't know if it's an Italian thing. I don't know if it's a marketing thing where like, don't tell people your prices, and maybe they'll say yes out of guilt. I don't know if it's there's a standard price that everyone pretty much adheres to, so you don't really need to ask.
I don't think it's, I just want to kind of nip this part in the bud, at least in the places that we've been. I don't think it would be a matter of like, oh, we're going to charge Americans more and Italians less.
Yeah. I agree.
It might be in more touristy areas. But people tend to be pretty nice about it.
Well, I think also it's depending where you are. Sometimes they're just extortionary rates, potentially. They just, sometimes they do feel like, are we getting fleeced? Like, this is expensive. Like, no, that's expensive for everybody.
What would you say is the like average price that you think Alito would cost for the day?
Per person?
Yeah.
I would say in the height of summer.
Yeah.
I would guess like 20.
Yeah, I'm thinking 20 to 30.
20 to 30, depending. And I think that depends on, I say summer because it's like, it'll be cheaper in June and September than July and August.
Yes.
August is going to be the most expensive month. That is when Italians take their vacations. So in a lot of Ferragosto, and we're going to do like a special episode, I think, on that, just as anybody who's,
we should.
Who's like thinking about coming in August, that is the worst month. But also because the big cities shut down and everybody goes to the sea. And so the
beaches are crowded and the cities have no one working.
And the Lidos are more expensive because they're like, why not, make that money?
There definitely is, you're right. There's definitely surge pricing and like
yes,
summer pricing.
That's a good point, yeah.
If you've looked for a place to stay in Italy for your vacation, you've probably noticed that too, that the prices go from like one thing from October to May. And then June is a certain price, July is another, August is another, then September it starts going down again.
Yeah. No, I think actually, if I may, just a little off topic, but we've stayed at a place in Scalea and it was only $300 a month, I think. It was $10 a day, basically. And this is not $10 a day, actually. It's $10 a day. It was through Airbnb, and it was a 50% off because Airbnb, I don't know if it's America, like if America's not getting the same sort of notifications, but everywhere in Europe that we looked for Airbnbs over a month, a lot of them give month-long discounts of usually 50%.
Or at least they did at the time.
Yes, that's a good point. But I've never seen that in the States. So this place was $20 a day between, as you mentioned, like October and May, and we got there in February, and I think it was like $300 of February, $300 March, $300 April, $300 May, and then all of a sudden it was like $500 in June, and then we looked at it for August, and it was like $1,000 in June, including the discounts.
In August,
excuse me. So if you if you weren't there for a month, it'd be basically something like $2,000 for the month. Again, per night, which is, I don't know, $100 maybe, something like that. No, 80, 90. But just as an example of how quickly these prices ratchet up. And the same thing with the Lidos. I think the one, it's not uncommon. We have friends who just went to the beach and they said it was 10 euros for two people, for half a day. So 20 for two people for a full day, but plus €5 for the third person. So they spent $15 for three people for 6 hours at the beach. And I'm like, that's insane.
I was thinking that's pretty affordable.
No, that's insanely cheap.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry. No, that's insanely cheap because I'm thinking we went to Ostia and it was like we were looking at $20 per person for 6 hours. It was 30, I think, for the whole day. And it was like, all right, that's $60 to go to the beach in Ostia.
Which is outside of Rome.
Yeah. It's kind of where that really brutal, one of those like Subaru. It's one of those like Roman mafia TV shows were filmed. They always like show people like tossing dead bodies into.
I was about
Ostia.
to say Sbarro, but that's the pizza place.
I know, and Subaru is a car, so it's like
Something like
Subaru.
that.
Sparrow.
It's not the most idyllic beach, let's say.
It is not.
Yeah, okay. So I would say 20 to 30 euros a person for the full day at Alito, which grants you your specific spot at your tanning bed. No, what's it called?
Beach chair.
Beach chair. With an umbrella. It doesn't come with a towel, so you have to bring your own towel. Some of them do, I think.
Some of them do.
But
Some
I would
come
bring
with
your
your
own towel
own-
just in case.
Well, some also come with a changing room / locker as well.
Ah.
So, and that's the thing. This is again going back to the thing of the price. Like, it's not unheard of $50 for the day because you get a changing room. It's an outdoor changing room, has a locker with a key, so you can get there, changing your stuff, put all your clothes and your phone and all that kind of stuff in the locker, and then go to the beach. Some of them, as you mentioned, they do have towels. So there is a bit of like there's very much you pay for what you get. Like if you want the whole experience, yeah, you can get the whole experience. You can basically just show up at the beach in beach clothes, and then I'm willing to bet some of them will rent you a bathing suit. Probably shouldn't accept it, but I'm willing to bet you could probably just.
I wonder. I don't know about that. Maybe.
Because some of the nicer ones probably are like we got like Speedos if you want to pop one on. Lost
Maybe.
and found.
You might have a lost and found.
Because I'm thinking, like, at least in Scalea, there's like literally the entire road to the beach was filled with shops to buy a bathing suit.
Yes.
So I guess you could always just pick one
You
up.
could
and then
definitely
go to
just buy a bathing suit when you get to the beach.
Yeah.
I don't think food is included in the price of your chair.
Yeah. I
That
agree.
will be extra.
I don't think I've ever seen that.
Most of the time, it's pretty affordable. I mean, like a beer regularly is like $1.50 in small towns, especially in southern Italy. When you go to a cafe, at the beach, I'm guessing they might be closer to like $3 in the summertime.
That's probably right.
For a bottle of beer. This is not like on draft craft
No,
beer.
this is a bottle of Peroni.
Yeah.
Well, we went to Chitara on the Amalfi Coast. Where did we go to?
Yeah,
and we had
Chitara.
a Campari soda, and I think we spent like €2 on the Campari soda.
I know,
each.
that was wild.
Yeah.
I thought we were splurging on that.
I really because it's not somebody. There's no view. There's nothing like that. It's just you're on the Amalfi Coast. They can charge €5 for a Campari
There's only
soda.
two.
So the fact they charge 2 is like, oh my gosh. You guys
That was
know
not
this.
on the beach, but
was
it
very
was
much not.
But it was very close to the beach.
Yeah. Sorry. Keep going.
I lost my train of thought.
That's okay. I can keep talking.
Okay.
I actually had one thing I did want to mention just very briefly. While you find your train of thought, please interrupt me if so. Is you mentioned there are places to get out of the sun in Alito.
Yes.
Something for listeners, dear listeners, to keep in mind is by and large these places are not like SPF proof out of the sun. This is under an awning out of the sun. I say that because the few times you and I have spent some time on these those usually the tables and stuff out of the sun. This once you got pretty severely sunburned.
But just for everybody's information, I'm basically a potato.
Yes, you're
I am
quite pale.
very pale, and I burn very easily.
Yes, you're a little lobster after 15 minutes.
Yes.
But I just
Maybe
wanted-
5.
Well, I'm thinking like if anybody listening has kids or something like that who
Yeah.
are, it's just like, oh, we're gonna get you out of sun for an hour just to kind of, especially heat of the day. You just be careful. Inside, obviously you're fine, but outside under the awning, it looks shaded, it looks fine, but it's not like SPF fabric or anything like that. You absolutely can burn underneath it.
That's a good. Okay, so I just thought of something. Sunscreen
Yes.
is obviously a thing here. It's a thing everywhere. But in my experience, it's been more expensive in Italy to buy sunscreen than it is in the U.S. It's often a better grade.
Yes,
though.
sure.
Better ingredients. And obviously more and more you can find the sunscreen that is like safe for coral and things like that, the zinc sunscreen. Just in case you think you're getting like fleeced at the pharmacy or the grocery store when it's like $10 for sunscreen or something.
Yeah.
It's more expensive.
And you can find suntan lotion, all the same kind of things. But
Yeah.
you're right, there's a lot of like limited on ingredients you can use that protect, the beaches. So I think
And
there's a
people.
lot of, and people. Yeah, yeah. The other thing I just want to very briefly mention, unless you're going to go into it, is sometimes the Lidos end up in the news, even in America. I think they ended up in like, I don't know if it was the New York Times or the Guardian or something, one of those like ones that'll run a couple stories about Italy every once in a while. And there's a big argument between owners of smaller Lido and Lidi and Giorgia Meloni, the prime minister, of Italy. And I only want to mention this only because it does happen that basically a lot of these Lidos are family owned. As we mentioned with our friend, he owns multiple businesses because basically Lido, it's one of those things where he doesn't actually make enough money to like only work the 4 months of the summer.
Right.
And then he's done. He's like, no, that covers the summer things. And then it's closed and I can't make money. I still have to pay rent for the beach. I still have to pay there's a tax you have to pay as a Lido to like have the access. Otherwise somebody else will come in. So there's a lot involved with this. So he's like, I still have a job. I just, in the summer, I quit the job or pause the job and work at this Lido and that he owns. So I wanted to kind of bring that only up because it's a lot of times, a lot of Lidos are family or run or like individual proprietor, or there's one person that runs it. And a lot of times they'll have help, but I mean, those two, I think it was him and,
I think it's just him and his partner.
Yeah.
His
I think
wife,
they were just running it by themselves.
They very much are small businesses.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So, and there's definitely, and that's the only reason I mentioned that, because there's definitely a big change is there's a lot of, because I believe, and I might be wrong, but I believe for the longest time, only Italians could own a Lido to prevent,
interesting.
and I think it would only own one.
Interesting.
You couldn't own,
so you can't be like a big conglomerate.
You couldn't own like this entire coastline of the Amalfi or something like that. Because of course, if you have the money, you can.
And what does Giorgia Meloni have to do with that?
I think she was stripping away those protections. She was allowing outside.
I mean, I don't agree with her politics, but usually she's so on like Italians are the best, and we need more Italians.
And that might be what it is.
Doesn't really seem to go along with her policy. That's weird.
I know, and it could be legit. I want to be very clear. It could be wrong. This is like 2 years ago, and it could be she went the other way, and she was defending, but somebody else was basically trying to strip it away. But there's always been. I guess all this was just somebody to say. I think our whole podcast tries to be as conscientious as possible. I don't. It's like when you I think we're big on like when you go to a place for the first time, like instead of going to the grocery store, try to go to the local market instead of going to the the big thing, go to the small thing. I think with the Lidos, it's like you're not going to get the same experience obviously at a very small family run one or a very small 1 or 2 person proprietor one, because they cannot do everything. So it's one is to have just a little patience, because I think if they're the ones making the coffee and cleaning up the changing room and bringing you the plate of fries and, doing all these things, and they're walking around making sure that people have cleaned up their chairs and reorganizing them. In those, I think there's a little more patience required than the ones where they've a staff of like 18 kids who are just running around doing everything.
It's definitely a family run. It's not, White Lotus.
Yeah,
which
I've not
was
seen it, but yes.
A massive hotel, not a Lido, but
yeah, exactly. So that was just, I just wanted to mention those two small things. And while you were finding your train of thought.
That pretty much, that pretty much is Lido's. And we're going to get into rules in a second. But as far as cost goes, I didn't say, but you can always ask how much things cost.
Oh my God, yes. Yeah.
And if it's too much for you, you can go to the next one. Like, I think people very kindly have asked us a lot recently, just because we've come in contact with people traveling through Italy a lot recently. Like, oh, do Italians, would they hate it if I do this thing? Or is it okay if I ask this thing? Or is it okay if I drink this thing? Which is incredibly kind of people to ask. And, it's really sweet to worry about what people are going to think and if you're going to offend them. So it's totally fine to ask how much it costs for a sunbed and an umbrella for the day and be like, all right, no thanks, too much for me.
Mm-hmm. There's totally also, acceptable. If I may, and because that's 100% right, and I'm glad you brought that up, because there's nobody finds it weird here that you ask how much something is.
Right.
It's an Italian thing. It's very weird. Like nobody wants to tell you how much something is, because almost like I feel like Italians, as a broad generalization, feel bad asking you for money for something. Like I'm like, you spent time on this, you can ask me for money. Like no, but like, what do you think it's worth? And I'm like, I don't know. But the reason I mention that is because I also think sometimes people get the impression that Italians are like negotiators, or like they're gonna, you can negotiate with people on the price. You can what is that, the word, negotiate? Yeah. Okay. I'm like, am I the bargaining?
Barter.
No, barter. No, not barter.
You barter at like a garage sale.
Is that what it is? Or I think bargain at a garage. No. Yeah. Barter.
Barter.
Okay.
You barter for bargains.
One of us is the writer, and man, is he dropping the ball. Because I was like, the barter systems when you trade, I don't know. Point is, we have people who have asked us, it's like, oh, that seems really high. Should I be like negotiating? Should I be bartering with them? Should I be trying to bring it lower? I'm like, no.
No, that is rude.
The price. That's it. it might not have like a sign. It might not have something like that. It might not be, it might not be as, I know as an American, I think everything comes with a very shiny price tag to let you know, this is how much this thing cost. And I think, but you would never think of bartering with anything in America, even the flea market. If somebody, is like, it's 10 for this, 7 for that, 7 for that. You're not like, here's a 20 for everything. It's like, okay, well, here's your $23. So I think here that people get the impression, especially at markets, because we talked about this before in Rome, like you go to the market in Porto Portese or something like that, and we have people who ask us, like, can I barter with them? It's like, no. They know everything they have. They know exactly how much it costs. They're not giving you a bad price.
I think in specific situations, maybe you can, or like for giant pieces of furniture or something. But no, in most cases, the price is the price.
Yes. And when it comes to Lido, the price is the price.
Yeah. If someone tells you it's 20 euros, take that as if it were written on a sign in the front of the building that it's 20 euros.
Last, actually, I have a question. Did you find pricing for children?
Oh, that's a great question. I didn't.
Okay, because somebody asked me on Reddit the other day. We have a Reddit account, by the way, Only a Bag. You don't have to follow the Reddit account, but if you see it pop up, let us know. And somebody asked, they have a family of 4. They have 2 children and 2 adults. Can they just rent 2 beds and cycle through? Like, basically, the kids will be in the water while we'll be in the thing, or like one parent with one kid kind of thing. And I basically made an educated guess. And my understanding with a lot of the times is it's not like a hard no, but it's certainly, if you're 4 people, you get 4 beds and you have to pay for the 4 beds. And there might be a child pricing, which is, I think, probably like half price or something like that, something in that neighborhood.
I think it probably depends on the Lido.
Absolutely. Because I think also the thing, I mean, again, just from their point of view, it's, I imagine they're saying that we could say no to your family of 4, 2 adults and 2 children, and just wait for 4 other adults to come and give us the full price.
It also might be that if you have 2 small children, if they're like under 5 or something,
right,
they might give you a 3rd chair for the price of an adult, or they'll charge you just for the kids being there, potentially half price or a small sum, and they can share the chairs with you. Yeah, I imagine it's just a matter of which Lido it is.
That, I was going to say that the 2 things is, the 2 other notes is, one, if you know where you're going, like if you know you're going to go to the Amalfi Coast or Cinque Terre, which is not really swimming, there's no Lido there, but there may be like one in maybe one of the Vernaccia or something like that. But if you know where you're going, knowing which beach you're going to, you can look at the Lido and you can message them, like WhatsApp. Everybody has WhatsApp in Italy. Every company, every business, everybody responds to the WhatsApp. So you can just send them a little WhatsApp message, and ideally you could do the little Google Translate into Italian and send it. You could do it in English and they'll Google Translate it on their end, and ask them if there's a different price for children as there is for adults. That one kind of always works. I mean, just if you kind of, you can kind of collect some information for yourself. And then there's another piece of advice, and I've kind of completely forgotten what it was, and honestly I can't imagine it was that important. So just kidding, cutting back in here to let people know I remembered what it was. There are some Lidi that are not for children, but geared toward children rather than geared towards adults.
Ah, yes, really good point.
Playgrounds and more ice cream treats and less beer. I mean, there's probably beer, let's be honest, but it's still like, it's if you want your kid to go, I don't know, I guess it's like my mom hated going to Paris with me when I was a kid because she was like, I didn't see the inside of a single museum. Yeah. All I saw were like different playgrounds. Yeah. So I feel like maybe you don't want to do that, but if you want your kid to like kind of go swimming and then play in the playground and then meet other kids and
especially I think some of them are set up in a way that there will be like a small little fence around a lot of where the sunbathing beds are.
Yes.
I mean, it's open, you can get to the sea, but it's more that like if there's parents there and there's a playground there, your kids can go over to the playground, you're still in eye shot, they are safe. I mean, there's no one else there to take care of them, but they're still your responsibility. But they're in like a more contained area.
Yeah, I think they can't run from the playground into the sea and like almost drown. So that's a big fear of mine. Yeah. Ever since I realized,
really dark thought there.
Well, you were talking about that one time I was babysitting the 2 boys I was babysat, and then they were like in this little pool, and it was only like a couple inches of water, and I was like, no, they're having a fun time, and you're like, oh my god, kids can drown in 2 inches of water, and I was like, I did not know this. So I was like watching like a hawk all of a sudden. I was like, no, it's 2 inches of water. Who can drown? So
they can.
Yeah. So that was fun for me. Everybody learns at different ages. So some fun rules though for Lidos.
Okay, yeah. So the rules at the Lido and the rules at the regular beach are different.
The free beach, right?
Yeah, the free beach. Thank you. The spiaggia libera, meaning the Lido will likely have more strict rules. Like At the free beach, often you can play soccer or different,
Frisbee.
beach sports. Yeah, as long as you're being, obviously respectful.
And if there's space.
And if there's space. A lot of times there is not space.
Yeah.
But if there is space, you should feel free to go for it. That one specifically, though, depending on the municipality, if it's like a high traffic time, you might be asked to not play
Sure.
rowdy sports that take up a lot of space because you get in the way of other people. But, for example, you cannot play soccer at the Lido. There is no room. It's rows of these sunbathing beds, the beach chairs, and umbrellas. There's nowhere to play soccer there.
That being said, I will say some of them will have on the street side. They will
little
have
soccer pitch.
a little soccer pitch or
Yeah.
a volleyball pitch. They had one in Rome. They had one in Salerno. A few of them have like little soccer volleyball pitches. So they're like if I guess the best way to explain the Lido is like they really are geared to different. Like some are for kids, some are for older people who want to relax and like drink and like not really go in the water. Some are for people who want to play sports. Some are for it's like there's a really are like you kind of have to find your vibe, I guess.
And they're all usually when you're in a town, they're all pretty close to each other.
They're touching. They're all touch.
Yeah, so it's not like you're gonna have to like walk around the entire town finding which one works for you and do some scoping out and
just walk along the boardwalk basically.
Exactly.
You could be like, this one has like the Caribbean music going from one and you have like I don't know Shakira's top 20s from the other and you're like, oh okay, this is whatever's your vibe. Kind of thing. Sorry, so the rules, yes.
Okay, so one big thing I think people ask us or maybe just mention, a lot of Americans, particularly young Americans, are think that Italian beaches are all just nude beaches.
Good point. Yeah.
And that is not accurate. There are only very specific nude beaches that are separate, at least separated by a sign, sometimes completely separate beaches entirely, for being fully nude. It is legal to be topless, just generally for anybody, on an Italian beach. It is not necessarily legal to be topless at the Lido because it's a business. So that's up to them. They're not infringing on your legal rights by asking you to cover up no matter who you are. But if you're on the free beach, you should be able to be topless.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And if you're on a boat or a yacht, a pontoon, any kind of seafaring vessel, you can also be topless. And that one's got a little more of a gray area because you're on, I'm talking about, I guess I should specify, like a personal boat with your friends. Not if you're like on a public taxi or something.
If you're renting something.
Or if you're, if you're renting something with a couple of friends.
But if you're renting something, because I know there's like buses, what are those called? Boats that take you to like a different island or something like that.
Yeah, that's definitely a gray area. If you're being ferried by somebody who is not in your party, like someone working, you can't necessarily be topless, especially not nude, because that's kind of infringing on their personal space and rights. So that's definitely a gray area.
Gray areas.
But on the beach, topless, good to go, no problem. Just wear sunscreen.
No, that makes sense though, because I think as an American, I'm very used to like how men at the beach dress, specifically in relation to bathing suit. Because I don't think I brought a bathing suit over the first time when we came to Italy, like 6 years ago. That didn't make it into the luggage. But no, I was like, oh, I have this quick dry, like ex officio underwear. I actually now use Costco underwear because it's the same thing, but it doesn't matter. But it was like the $30 a pair, and it was like you could do anything with it. And I'm like, yeah, it could be like my bathing suit. And it comes to mid thigh, and it's like mesh, and it's tight. And then we get to the beach, and like every other guy is in the little Speedo thing, and I'm like,
very tiny.
Yeah, and I feel like this overdressed like. I don't know. I think like if I wore that in the States, I'd feel really like kind of like scandalous. Like, oh, I'm trying to show some thigh. And then here I felt like the most prudish person ever. Like, what is he doing in his shorts?
Guys here definitely wear tiny bathing suits.
Yeah, there's a big thing. And that's all I say. Obviously, you do not have to wear a tiny bathing suit. You'll be fine in your big bathing suit. Big, long, tall. What is it? Large bathing suit if you come with a larger bathing suit. But if you want to do as the Italians do, then you can run to Decathlon or any other bathing suit place and grab like a little Speedo.
Which is spelled decathlon for anybody.
It's spelled Decathlon.
Yeah. We always say the Decathlon way.
decathlon way. But no, I just thought that was kind of interesting. Like, again, these sort of differences. And I think also as just like if you do happen to go to a beach and there are people topless, I wanted to mention, because we've been to, at least outside of Rome, and even here it was kind of common, but outside of Rome it was common, that nobody also stares. It's not really like it's not like it's not, I don't know. It's basically.
Nobody should be staring at you.
Yeah.
It is on them and weird if they are.
Yeah. It's, I don't know. So kind of one of those things that I noticed, because I noticed when we were there, there's a bunch of loud, kind of very boisterous people, kind of, I mean, Italians, but it was all very like, quite aggressive, but it was just with the people who were topless. Nobody was being sort of like lecherous or leering or anything like that. It was very much like.
And it's also people of all ages. I mean, there's, especially like female identifying women who are like 70, in just a bottom, you know?
Well, I think also we've found that, at least for the, by and large, like general strokes, it feels like after 60, I think everyone's just topless.
Yeah, they don't care anymore.
Like, no,
and I love
everyone's just like, yeah, this is how I look, and we're going to the beach, and we're getting tan, and we're going to look good.
Tummy's out, everything's out.
Just kind of, it's like the perfect life.
But having said everything's out, I don't think we've said this yet. I kind of talked about nude beaches. It's not legal to be completely nude at the beach.
Yes.
For anyone. I mean, anyone above like 5 years old or whatever. If you're an adult, you can't be naked at the beach. There are specific nude beaches. And some of them, if like the coastline is long enough, they'll be, part of the same coastline, but there should be very clear signage, for passing the point of people can be clothed here or unclothed.
Yeah.
And then some of them are completely separate beaches. For instance, along the Amalfi Coast, a lot of the beaches you have to walk down to, and they are surrounded by rocks and cliffs and things, and they're quite small. So sometimes those will be like a specific, very specific beach all by itself that is a nude beach.
Yeah.
But there should be signs everywhere that clearly mark it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Are you going to move on past we're going to move more into rules?
Yes.
Well, the one thing, if I may jump in, unless you have this for later, is about the free beaches. It's about, again, just sort of expectations for our listeners. It's, if you're looking for the quintessential classic Italian experience, if you want to go to a beach, if you want to relax, if you want to have a good day, I definitely recommend putting some money aside for the Lido. Consider like $100 a day for the beach to be like, I mean, that includes a food, maybe lunch, you get some fries, you have a couple beers, coffee, ice cream, whatever it is. That includes the stay, that includes the bench, the whole 9 yards, not the bench, the beach chair. The reason I say that is because the free beaches, almost every town has a free beach. I'm imagining, in theory, every town should have a free beach, but again, the Amalfi Coast, it's like, when you look at it, especially like satellite or when you're there, it's like, oh, there's clearly the paid beach, and there's like some rocks.
Yeah, or like a sliver.
Yeah. So what we have noticed in Scalea, in Ostia, in here, just in the Cilento coast, is that the free beach is tiny, and it is wall to wall people.
Yes.
I mean, in Scalea, it was literally, there was room for 2 towels in rows of people, and so we just put our 2 towels down and we laid. And it's like your feet are right next to somebody's head. Somebody else's feet are next to your head. So that's
same
like,
in Ostia.
Same in Ostia. The exact same in Ostia. It was like kind of this weird little, not weird, but it just felt like, I don't know, again, American beaches.
It was very sardine-like.
It was very sardine-like, because I'm used to American beaches where you have like...
space.
Yeah. Like even a packed day at the beach.
It was fine for us because we didn't have a lot of money to spend.
Yeah.
I think you and I were just happy to be in the sun, near the ocean, at the water. Absolutely. So it is, if that's your vibe, I think that's awesome. But if you have a little bit of extra money to spend, if you want some personal space, I think a Lido is worth it.
That was the big thing. I think that was just sort of, if you're looking for a very classic, and classic, not maybe in a strictly Italian sense, but classic, like, I just want to spend a week at the beach in Italy, potentially consider taking, like, if you have a very set budget, consider taking funds from like really fancy nights out or something like that to the beach, because otherwise the free beach really can be beautiful, and there's some beautiful free beaches. It's just, it can also be, as you mentioned, it's just, you have one person next to you playing music, you have another person next to you eating a watermelon with a spoon, you have somebody, it's just like, just what is going on.
It can be a bit chaotic in the Spiaggia Libera.
Yeah, it can be just a casino, as they say. Sorry, so as we continue.
Yeah, okay. So I went over how Lidos have different rules than the free beach, right? Okay, so let's get into the free beach rules. And these are just general beach rules, you know?
Like throughout all of Italy?
Yes.
Okay.
As far as my research tells me. And everything changes by municipality. But by and large, these are the rules. Okay, so these on my list, it says yes, but rules. So we went over being topless versus being fully nude. Smoking. So you typically can smoke on the beach. You cannot leave your cigarette butts in the sand. Once you all get here, I'm sure you'll notice, hey, there's cigarette butts in the sand. Darcy told me that it's illegal. It is. But people will be people, and they leave their cigarette butts, they leave their trash, but that you're not supposed to.
Yeah, sometimes they leave like all the trash from their lunch just where they were, and they'll leave, and that just drives literally everybody up a wall.
Yes,
so.
Everybody is bothered by it. It's not just you.
Yeah.
Meaning you, listener, and also you, Nathaniel.
Oh yeah, no, well, I'm very bothered by it.
So some beaches will have a designated smoking area.
Interesting.
Yeah, I know.
Like
I thought that was
airport.
interesting. Yeah, exactly. Again, with a Lido, it might change.
I was gonna say it might be up to the Lido's sort of discretion.
And hopefully they'll have those rules posted. So dogs is an interesting one.
Okay.
You should be able to have your dog just walking your dog, living your life. You should be able to walk the dog along the coastline at any beach. That can be past Lido's, that can be past the free beach, anything like that. Some beaches have rules saying you can't like sit with your dog on the beach. I don't know if that's because there are some unruly dogs in this country. I have no idea, but you should be able to walk along the coastline if you're taking your dog for a walk, cleaning up after them, obviously. I believe the Lido's have their own rules about that.
Sure, that makes sense.
Especially because they have food and they kind of work as a restaurant and a cafe. They're going to have their own rules around those. Except if your dog is like a guide dog, safety rescue dog, things like that, you should be able to take your dog wherever you need to take your dog.
If they are.
If they are.
Oh, I think unless they are.
Sorry, I might have. If they are
a guide dog,
like a safety rescue dog, a guide dog, if they're there for your safety, you should be able to take that dog anywhere.
Okay, cool. It's also, I will say, in the north too, we've noticed like Torino, even Milan, more or less, a couple places in the north, people are a lot more dog, not just dog friendly, but it's like more part of the culture.
Yeah.
You know, people were like, yeah, of course I brought my dog to the cafe, and my dog's inside the cafe and sitting next to me or laying at the feet. Or I think one person we mentioned that they take their dog over to the library, to this, to the grocery store. It's like,
it's very cute.
Yeah, it's not, I think it's like not as like, what is that dog doing here? Again, sort of American, but like in the South, it's a little bit, well, people just don't like dogs as much, I think, in the South.
Yeah.
There's a different, I think, general attitude, but like dogs absolutely go into every store by themselves. But they're not really supposed to.
Okay, but it is really cute. In the town where we live, and really in the valley where we live, there are a lot of particularly women who, and like air quote middle-aged and older women who have dogs, or one little dog or two little dogs or whatever. And they'll go do the shopping with the woman, but they don't go in the shops. The little dogs just sit outside the door and wait patiently. Like at the post office, they wait outside. The grocery store, they wait outside. Or sometimes they'll go around the little piazza doing their own thing until, the dog's mom is ready to go.
Yeah, and they're like, oh, we got to go.
Very cute. But different culture.
Very different, yeah.
Okay, so quickly going through the no's. No littering. No camping or sleeping on beaches. That's a big one because I think in the not so distant past, a lot of people when they went backpacking slept on beaches, and that was totally fine at the time, or they just didn't police it. That is not okay now.
That's literally, I grew up on people's stories of like, oh my God, if you can't find somewhere, just sleep at the beach. And everyone's like, I used to like work at the cafe and
eat on $2 a day and get a job under the table and sleep on the beach. That's not a thing anymore, y'all. Please stop telling people that.
We actually should do a backpacking episode on that because I think a lot of people still come here. Like I only said, I know it's a brief aside, but on like the digital nomad subreddit and stuff like that, people say, if I'm going to Italy, can I get a job under the table? And it's like, no one wants to get in trouble with like the Guardia Finanza. No one will give you a job under
The
the
Guardia
table.
di Finanza is like tippy top. They will find you.
It's essentially the IRS had a police force.
Yeah.
And then the police force drove around in cars.
Potentially, if you do something wrong before the Carabinieri or like the Polizia of the municipality finds you, the like Guardia di Finanza will be like, hey, are you doing something illegal with money?
Yeah.
We're going to find you.
Well, actually, if and I know I'm sorry, there's another big aside,
go.
just because somebody on the Rome subreddit asked, they had a meal for 69 euros, but the restaurant asked them to pay 60 euros, like they were going to pay with the card. And they said, well, we can do 60 on the card, but we want the other 9 in cash. And that was their way of kind of just taking 9 off the top tax free. But I remember there was a lot before I went traveling, again, that was, everyone would tell me like, you know, cops will come up to you outside of a grocery store and ask to see your receipt, because if you didn't get a receipt, then they're not putting that money on their books, and they're going to go back in there and they're going to start like,
People warned you
finding-
about that before you went traveling?
Yeah, so they're like,
Interesting.
to protect yourself, to protect everybody, always ask for a receipt. So there's a big thing here about like, sort of, I know.
I'm over here telling people no receipt, save the trees.
Well, I think
it's a
they
tiny
still
part.
like, you can, you know, I think because in the States, obviously ask like, do you want the receipt? No, okay, that's fine. They still, I mean, I don't know, half the time I feel like they just hit no or print it out and throw it away. But here, I think they very much have to give the receipt, because it's like, you need to show that.
I mean, I think people print it out every time, but sometimes I say no because I just don't want the extra paper in my bag.
And
Dang.
oftentimes it's not even itemized, so that's kind of one of those things where, like, I mean, a lot of times restaurants we've been to, they just give us a receipt that says 79 euros, and we're like,
Or a handwritten piece of paper.
yeah. Sometimes a handwritten
my
piece of paper
favorite.
says 79 euros, and we're like, okay, so what did I buy that was 79 euros? Because I was doing the math with you, and I don't think I hit that.
But sometimes that's the best restaurants.
Oh, God,
and they're
yes.
like, I'm like, yeah, you made up a price because that's
100%.
probably basically what your groceries and a little bit of your labor cost.
Yes, there's a lot of times the restaurants, especially smaller ones, will do a like set price, like kind of like $30 a head or something like that, and they'll just make up like, I don't know, whatever works to make it $30 a head is kind of like how they do it usually. So that's a little off topic though, I'm realizing now. But
That was good,
back
though.
to your nose.
That's good info. Okay, so back to rules. Don'ts. Things you don't want to do. Okay, so we said no littering, no camping / sleeping overnight. Can't do that anymore. A lot of the things I saw on things you can't do at the Italian beaches is no fishing or catching like marine life.
Interesting.
I would say if you want to fish while you're here, if that's a thing you want to do while you're on a trip, check you can go to the Comune website, which is spelled basically commune.
Yeah.
So go to type in the town where you'll be staying, and Comune, and you can possibly find their fishing rules. Basically just look it up because fishing does happen here.
Oh God, yeah.
Big, fishing industry and fresh seafood thing happening along the coast. So I think it's just that every place has its own rules, and it might be there's like a designated area where you can fish, but then you can't fish for the rest of the beach.
Well, I think too, again, you mentioned Tybee Island, and we come from a place where it's common that people will be out there with their lines, 4 or 5 lines in the water, next to people who are swimming.
Which is ugh.
And so it's a little, I mean, I don't know, for us, it's a little like, I don't want to get hooked by something, you know? I don't
And
want
people definitely have it Tybee.
Yes, absolutely
in the
have.
States, yeah.
And that's, I think, something that here it's a big avoidance. Like, let's avoid that because there's definitely fishing. If that's something that's interesting, but it's also, I think there's experiences you can go. Like in the sense you can book some guy to help, to bring you somewhere and gives you all the gear, and because that might be a better option than like, I don't know, bringing your fishing rod. Is that a thing?
I have no idea. I have
Me either.
no fishing experience.
0.
Okay, so kind of like that is no taking shells from the beach. A lot of people do,
Sure.
but it's just like national parks. You're not allowed to take things away. You shouldn't take things from the beach. I have taken a shell from the beach before. I didn't realize.
No, she hasn't. Everybody.
I didn't realize it was a no-no.
Until you read that.
Yeah, until I read that. And now
What
I
if,
won't.
like the Guardia de Finanzas listening to this podcast episode?
They can come have my shell.
They can
I'll be
tax
really
you for
sad.
that shell.
I'll be really sad if they come for it, but I'm a rule follower.
That's
I
a
don't
good
know if
point.
we
You
covered
are.
that. I'm a rule follower. Nothing was living in the shell, by the way, when I took
Yes.
it. I didn't take like an animal.
Can you take a beach class?
Great question.
Because it doesn't. I mean, it's kind of like trash. In the sense that it's like definitely trash. In the sense like somebody broke a bottle and then it got nicely sanded.
I really don't know. I would have to do some more research on that. I think it would be quite similar to taking a shell in that it is a part of the environment at a certain point. And that's what you don't want to disturb because they can't have people just like taking away bags full of, the sand and earth that exists for the fish
Yeah,
and
good
wildlife.
point.
So I don't really know.
Because I will say, though, we have seen people walk up and down, like collecting glass or collecting shells or collecting.
Yeah,
There's
people
also like a lot
definitely
of
do it, but it's just not allowed.
tiles.
Yeah.
Like we'll often see more at some beaches than others, but like especially rocky beaches, but people will just dump tiles there in the winter. And then by the time the summer rolls around, they're all like washed smooth. So I don't really get, I mean, I do get that. It's definitely a weird thing here. People just dump tiles everywhere because I guess you can't really recycle tiles.
I imagine too that a lot like sea glass, they've washed up from somewhere else as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Something was dumped.
There's that
and then they
Below
washed
Deck episode where they tossed a couple plates overboard because they had broken. And we're just like, you don't know what's in that glaze. You don't know what's in that plate. You know what you're doing.
Yeah, for real. That
Yeah.
was a poor choice.
'Cause I'm pretty sure that's like littering with extra steps, just being on a mega yacht.
Sea littering.
There you go.
Okay, so here's an interesting one. You can't put your umbrella and beach chair in a spot to save it long term.
Interesting.
That doesn't mean you can't put up your umbrella and your little chair and your little setup and everything and then go into the water and then come back. Nobody should be taking your stuff or moving your stuff. But everything refers back to Savannah. But we have a big St. Patrick's Day parade, and it is not okay to leave, like back in the day in the 90s or even early 2000s. Back in the day, it wasn't that long ago. But you could leave, a setup and like ready for like 20 to 50 people, and you've got it staked out. You can leave it overnight. You can't do that anymore. That is very similar to this. You cannot leave your beach chair and umbrella there to save it for like hours.
That makes sense.
It can be taken.
Like you can't show up at 6 a.m., set up a thing, leave, and then come back at 10 or 11.
Right. And you can't leave it overnight, set up
Sure.
for the next day.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
Okay. You can't have bonfires on the beach.
Sure. That makes sense.
Safety. And this one's okay. So technically, you're not supposed to be playing loud music.
I don't think anyone's ever followed that rule.
Yeah, no one follows that rule at all.
Again, a lot of Italian rules I feel like are there for very specific instances when somebody breaks them and they want to punish that person, but they don't have a rule. It's kind of like, what else are we going to catch this person on? It's like, I know, loud music.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, yeah, I think there's sometimes a lot of
Like
rules.
tax evasion.
That's the thing.
whatever
What is it?
is.
Al Capone tax evasion? It's like sometimes like you just get them on what you can get them on. And in Italy, it's like we everything's illegal. And we're not going to prosecute unless we don't like you.
I don't know.
think that's
Okay,
it at
so
all.
loud music and basically rowdy, raucous, in the way sports.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
mostly you can play sports on the beach, but like we said earlier, the free beaches, especially in the height of summer, they are not big enough for you to play a game on the beach. So if you're in the way of people, if you're, obviously, certainly if you're injuring people, if other people are injuring people playing their game, they shouldn't be there. They shouldn't be doing that.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So,
And-
I mean, it's pretty basic rules. That's all the rules.
And I'm curious because like we've talked about in that episode that I believe is our special episode, and how like sometimes on the surface it looks like Italy's kind of not skeptical, but they don't really, I don't know. People talk about how Italy has all these rules for like in Sorrento you can't have a bathing suit walking around, you can't use flip flops in Cinque Terre, you can't. There's like different towns you can't walk barefoot around because they're on the beach, and they want people to like no, there's glass and stuff, and no, you just cannot walk barefoot around town. So this is, I guess these aren't as sexy as those rules in the sense of it's not like as shock and awe. And I mean, if you're really concerned, you can absolutely look up, I think, like specific, like your town, beach rules, town rules, things like that. But it's functionally the same rules, I believe, as most of the states, no bonfires, no loud music, no leaving stuff, no camping,
No being totally nude.
no being totally nude. Yeah.
No being a jerk.
And
That's
the
not
last
illegal,
thing,
but
well, in Italy, they're going to try. I love that. I just like that Italy's like big thing. It's just like nothing's legal until we prosecute you for it. But I will say too, like the spiaggi liberi, the free beaches are, because this also, I don't know if we mentioned, I don't think we did. This also includes for lakes as well. Like all these rules are pretty much lakes and seas. So that's just something like in the sense of, like all the Lido rules. There might be cheaper for the lakes, but they're still going to be functionally the same things. I think one thing you didn't mention too is that sometimes Lidos will have like float toys and
Oh yes,
like,
thank you, Nathaniel. Yes. Okay, so when you go to a Lido, sometimes they will have like a little the little pedal boats, especially if you're on a lake. They'll have floaty things that you can take out. I think that's a big benefit.
Sometimes they have that little like the not the dock. What would you call that? Like a little floaty island. They'll like float an island and
the
anchor
little
it.
like trampoline one.
Kind of. It's like they have. Sometimes they'll have like little. We've seen ones they have a lifeguard just out 30 or 40 feet from the shore, so you can kind of swim to that and then swim back.
Absolutely.
We've also seen some where they use blow up mattresses as rafts. So it's
amazing.
Mixed bag.
That's why you want to check out the Lido, see your options.
Yes, before you go
ask
there.
the price and what's included.
Well, the other thing I was going to say is, especially for lakes, but for like for instance in Bracciano, which is north of Rome,
It's a lake.
It's a lake.
Yeah.
And we went there once to check it out because somebody said it's much more chill, it's much more relaxed. The water's a lot colder because it's a lake for some reason. I don't know how water works. To be very clear, I might sound like an idiot. Someone's like, "What does that even mean?" But no, it was interesting because some Lidos, I guess, I got permission to put sand on the beach and then going out into the water about 20 feet.
Huh.
And then some were mud, and I think where we were was mud, which I thought was kind of fascinating because I'm like, oh, going back to the ecological thing, like you can put sand? That's not mud. That's not part of here.
Naturally occurring.
Yeah. Because that was part of it, but also it's a cleanliness thing. I think a lot of times, a lot of people prefer the Lido because they are cleaning up the beach. Like they clean up their area, at least. They put it all in a bag and they throw it away. The free beach doesn't necessarily have anybody to clean it up. And they do get cleaned, but not as often, not as frequently. So it can be a little bit of a, I don't know it's not dirty. It's not dirty at all. It's like, it's just sometimes
more hectic altogether.
It's just more hectic, I guess, because there is trash. As you mentioned, people have cigarette butts and their food wrappers and this, that, the other thing. And there's always like somebody's like bundled up towel or shirt somewhere.
Something forgotten buried under the sand.
Yeah, and I think on the Lido it's not. It's much more clean. It's much more organized, which is again that thing of like if you're just looking for, I just want to be relaxed and I want to be happy. That's why the Lido's the way to go. One other rule, if I may, though, most Lidos do not allow you to move the chairs.
Oh yes, good point.
They are spaced usually about maybe 2 feet apart. I don't know. I have an accent there. Maybe 2 feet apart. But they're usually about 2 feet apart. So if you're a family of 4, you cannot like squeeze them together. They will come out usually and tell you, no, it's 4 feet apart.
And you can't like
2 feet apart.
Generally take your chair and like move it into the water or something like that.
Yeah,
your chair should be where your chair is.
So that's a big thing. Like once you're there, you're there. So that's just something to consider as well as far as again, once you're paying for it, it's not like you can do whatever you want. It's still follow all the rules.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think so. Is that every?
So okay, quickly, I want to go over flags. Okay, so I'm really excited about this because
office supplies and flags.
Okay, so there's 3 colors of flags at the beaches. They're big to be seen by everybody up on a big flagpole, right? So they're there for your safety. So first is the white flag. That means you're good to go. Beach is safe.
Okay.
Wonderful beach day ahead of you, and there's a lifeguard on duty.
Okay.
Okay. Number 2 flag is a yellow flag, which could mean 2 things. It could mean that the water is a little bit rougher.
Okay. Okay.
It could also mean that the lifeguards have taken their lunch break.
So it's either there's a riptide or Giuseppe's.
Well, not
eating
everywhere
a
has a
sandwich.
riptide, but okay, yeah.
Okay.
Because so that depends on the municipality too. And some beaches have several lifeguards on duty, and usually they will rotate through, so you should be fine. But in the rare case that maybe it's a small beach and they only have one lifeguard and they need to take a lunch break between like 1 and 3, the yellow flag might not mean that the seas are rough. It might just mean that there is no lifeguard there to protect you. So swim at your own risk. I mean, you're always swimming at your own risk.
But swim more at your own risk.
Yeah. Okay. Number 3 is the red flag. That means it is dangerous to swim. Definitely swim at your own risk. It is not advisable, essentially.
Okay.
Red flag is danger. 2 red flags means you cannot swim. Do not go in the water. There is a bad storm happening.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So white flag, good to go. Yellow flag, a little bit rough, or lifeguards at lunch. Red flag is dangerous. 2 red flags is do not swim.
Good to know. And I know that when we'll talk about this in the next episode, there is a lot of geographical play into these things as far as like Italy gets a lot of winds from the north and a lot of winds from the south. The Scirocco, the Levante, the Grecale, and they affect like, I mean, even here we get the Scirocco and it's just hazy and super, super hot. And so it's like, I don't know I don't know how much it affects the water, but I did know that one time I went swimming in Scalea during the Scirocco. It was the hottest water I've ever been in.
Yeah.
Like I was really quite concerned.
The wind was pushing that hot water towards
I was like, this is some concerning sea life sort of like, I'm like, I'm hot and I don't have to regulate like a fish, you know?
Mm-hmm.
There are also 2 other flags. They are not related to swim conditions, but you might see them in relation to beaches in Italy. The first one are blue flag beaches. Mm-hmm. Bandiera blu, which is hilarious. They have azul, I think, but they just use blue for blue. So, you know, but then that's something that just means that it's ecologically a clean or ecologically friendly beach. Sometimes these have other rules. I did this whole article on it last year that didn't really go anywhere, but a lot of them have other rules as to like to keep it a clean beach, to keep it like a, you know, certain, there's no runoff, there's no this, there's no that, there's no industry nearby. It's supposed to be very clean, very safe beaches. There are also, as I very recently learned, green flag beaches.
What does that mean?
That is a designation given to 100 and some odd beaches by 14 pediatricians from both Italy and abroad, and it's beaches that are safe for children.
That's
and
amazing.
So they've taken things such as water quality, they've taken like how far out you can go, riptide, and then sometimes there's activities around for children. So if you're traveling with a family, or you know, kids, grandkids, nieces, nephews, just children you found at the airport, I don't know. I'm explaining what children are to people. No, you can look at green flag beaches, Italy, or green flag blue beaches, and the region you're going to, like Campania or Tuscany or whatever, Toscana. And they'll give you a little list of what green flag beaches are. And those are supposed to be ones that are more friendly for children.
Very
Again, some
cool.
of these are like lakes, some of these, you know, where it's more placid. Some of these are beaches, but that's just something to keep in mind if you're looking for the best possible beach for your family.
And I have one more note. This is actually from Nathaniel, but I'm going to tell you guys. So you made a point the other day, I think, again, you were talking to people on Reddit, and you suggested that people look at the Google satellite view of
Yes,
beaches.
yes.
Was that to see where the free beaches were?
Yes.
Okay, I think that's a really good tip.
Yes.
Especially
Thank you.
if you know where you're going, or if
Very
you're trying
modest.
to decide between a couple places. Like I think we've said before, the Amalfi Coast, somewhat deceptively maybe, doesn't have as many beaches as you might think.
Yeah, despite the fact it's all on the coastline, most of it is not swimmable.
Exactly. So checking that out via Google Satellite is a really good idea. And if the photographs were taken in the summertime, you can tell
That's the thing.
where the Lidos are.
Yeah.
Also with Google Satellite, so if you look along especially like the western coast of Italy, there are a couple little spots that look like they have like beautiful, like Caribbean-esque, bright
yes.
turquoise, beautiful water. That is chemical runoff.
Yeah, that one might not be super safe.
Yeah, so when I saw them, I was like, oh my gosh, Nathaniel, we have to go there. It has amazing water. No, you should not swim there. That is not good for you. They shouldn't be putting those chemicals in the water, obviously, but that is a bad sign.
Yeah, it's something being bleached, basically. It's
Yeah.
like the sand underneath it is being bleached. Because there's like one up near La Spezia, south of La Spezia, and we were like, oh, that's gorgeous. And then we looked into it, and everyone's like, this should not be a beach. I don't know what's happening here. It's illegal, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, so hot tip.
Yeah. And I was going to say the one about the free beach, the reason to say satellite is just, and I mean, not like you can Google free beach and Google Maps free beach, but the reason I say satellite is if they did take the satellite images in the summer, you can zoom into the beach and you can get a much better idea of, okay, there's one type of striped umbrella, there's another color of striped umbrella, and then there's a mismatch of umbrellas and chairs and towels, and that mismatch is the free beach.
Yes.
So that's just a visual way to figure out, like, is there a free beach here? Is there somewhere I can swim? And unfortunately, it doesn't work for everywhere. Not everywhere got a picture taken in the summer, but it does work, I think, for most of the Amalfi Coast. I think it was Cinque Terre. There's a few other places I realized that thankfully they took the picture in the summer, so you can kind of zoom in and see what's free and what's not.
Yeah.
So I think that's everything.
That wraps it up for rules, right? And
wraps it up.
somewhat beach culture.
Yeah, and this is probably stuff we'll touch on going forward just a little bit. Like we might have special episodes and stuff on, only because it's the summer. We're ramping up into the summer months. As things change, if any rules are set that are big and groundbreaking, we'll let people know with fun little special episodes. Not to be like news, but just to kind of like, I realize so many people on Reddit, they are asking questions when their trip is like a week out, or they just bought a ticket and they're like, I'm going in 3 weeks. I just bought my plane ticket. Did I just make a mistake, or can I go swimming, or blah, 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 blah. So I think we want, like, I realize there's a lot of putting people's fears at ease to bed. So yeah, thank you, Darcy, for all the lovely information on
You're
beach
very
culture and
welcome.
etiquette.
And if you guys have any questions for us, you can find us at onlybag.com, onlybag on Instagram.
Only_a_bag_.
Thank you. And that's the same for Reddit as well.
No, I think Reddit is just only a bag.
Only
I
a
think
bag.
on Instagram I just couldn't get only a bag, so that one's the only one of those underscores instead of spaces. But then we're only a bag on Reddit, which you don't have to follow us, but it's just kind of fun because we're. I just like to respond to people who have questions about Italy.
It's a good place to find Nathaniel and ask
It's a good place to find me.
But you can ask us the question on the website as well.
Yeah,
And Instagram.
And if you like this, please rate, follow, subscribe if you're on YouTube listening. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, ideas, requests for more information, please let us know.
Absolutely.
We are available. We are happy to answer.
Yeah. I
Thank
think
you.
that's it. Thanks for listening to my long list of rules.
As is appropriate.
Okay. We will talk to you next Wednesday.
Yes, for something else
Something else on beaches.
on beaches. This is the beach month.
Woo!